Hi guys, it's Freddy here, back on the desktop for this week's Retro RPG. And this week I would like to present this, The Babylon Project, the role-playing game based on Babylon 5. A somewhat ironic title, given that we've got, what now, 4 different RPGs? There's first and second edition of the D21 from Mongoose, and I believe they brought out a third one based on the Traveller rules, which they'd licensed at the time. But anyway, this is the very first one. It came out in 1997, I believe, while the series was still on, or just recently finished. It's from Titan Books in association with Chameleon Eclectic. There, I'm trying to pronounce it wrong again. Eclectic. Who published Millenniums End, which we covered last week. Titan Books handled all the publishing side of the Babylon 5 media. So they did comic books and novels and all that sort of stuff. I believe they did a technical journal as well, I seem to remember seeing. But this is the RPG. And it's an interesting product. It's slightly weird. First of all, obviously, it's a license of the Babylon 5 television series. Nice picture of the station on the front there. You're expecting lots of pictures from the TV series. And you'll be incredibly wrong. You've got lots of photographs of the CGI stuff. But people... Oh, that is so bad. All the characters. Spaceship CGI again. Lovely colourful schematics of the station, that's great. But all the artwork is really quite dodgy, apart from CGI renderings of ships and the station. And although it's called Babylon 5, there's only so many pictures of the station that you can put in a book. The other interesting thing about it is the task resolution system. In most role-playing games, you'll have your skill. Let's say it's 18, and you roll a dice on top of it. Let's say we're rolling a d6 and we roll 5. So 18 plus 5 is 23, and your games master will have set a target number. Usually in these games, the target numbers are set higher than the skills, so the randomness of the roll can account for the difference and stand a chance of failing at difficult tasks. The Babylon Project treats it slightly differently. You roll 2 dice, and your skills tend to be of similar levels to the targets. So a moderate target number might be 10, and you can have a skill of 12. But the 2 dice you roll a positive and a negative dice, both d6s. I probably should have got some dice to demonstrate this with, but we roll our positive dice and it comes up a 5. We roll our negative dice and it comes up a 2. Well, you always select the lower of the 2 dice. So you check your skill, let's say it's 12. The lower of the 2 dice is the 2, which is the negative dice, so you get -2, which means 12 minus 2, 10. And if your target number was a 10, you're fine. If it was higher than that, you failed. Likewise, if you roll your 2 dice and you get a 3 on your positive dice and a 5 on your negative dice, well, the 3 is lower, so you get +3 because it's the positive dice. Add it to your 12, you've got a 15. So you can actually end up rolling lower than your skill in this system, which is a little odd, and it adds some interesting variety to it. In the result of ties, if you roll 2 3s, then that's counted as cancelling each other out, and it's a 0. Obviously, double 1s or double 6s will always tie, so they're 0s. But back to the game itself, the task resolution makes it interesting. The artwork makes it pretty terrible. I think that's supposed to be Lita Alexander leaving a Psychor base, but she could be a zombie for all I know. That's terrible, terrible artwork. The species, there's a lot of interesting background in there. Using it as a sort of technical source book for the television show, it's very good. There's lots of information you wouldn't normally get about a TV show unless you bought technical manuals and those kind of things. It serves much of the same purpose as the original D6 Star Wars did back when it was released, in being very informational background information. But where the Star Wars one did have lots of photographs from the movies and was lovely, lush colour, this came at the very start of desktop publishing. So while it's very colourful, unfortunately, the character art is just dreadful. There's no other way of putting it. It's amateurish. It's really, really bad. At this time as well, desktop publishing people tended to go for very busy backgrounds. So you can see in some areas it becomes slightly difficult to read. That's something I've disliked about the move. But it's a generally fairly attractive book when you've got nice star maps. There you go. And the chart of the station that we saw earlier. That's all nice background information. It's an interesting rule system. It glosses over telepaths, which obviously are a large part of Babylon 5. Probably to bring them out in a source book later, but Chameleon Eclectic didn't last long enough. I have one source book for it, which I'll present here, which, shockingly enough, has a photograph of a character on the cover. Oh, have they changed their design ethos? Is it going to be photographs inside? Nope. Sorry to break it to you. Little cough there. It's all... These are to work again. Again, it's about Earth Force. There's lots of interesting information. General Haig, if you recognise that actor, you will recognise that is not a good representation of him. Just so many. Bruce Boxleitner, you can maybe recognise from that picture. It's not good. I'm a terrible artist when it comes to drawing freestyle. I use filters and things on Photoshop to hide my sins of artwork, but these look childish even to me. These look like something your kid would bring back from secondary school. Sorry to the artist. I'm not going to search for his name. I mentioned before, one of the things, this was on the very start of desktop publishing using computers. Chameleon Eclectic was also on the cutting edge of using the internet. So their games, both Millenniums End, I think they had one called Psychosis. I probably should have looked that up. And the Babylon Project, they would publish adventures in PDF format. So very detailed maps and lots of detail. They were properly published adventures, but you could just download them on the internet. And I know Wizard of the Coast kind of did that with Star Wars D20 later on and D&D 3rd edition. They do a lot less of it now, but there was a lot of information you could download and you could pick up these games and actually play them. Some of the Chameleon Eclectic ones for Millenniums End are so good that they're still floating around the internet, having been rewritten. If you look for Blood on the Snow, which is a classic Millenniums End adventure, you'll find it going around, having been repurposed for Cyberpunk and various spy games. But anyway, back to the Babylon Project. It was an interesting idea. I hate that pink logo on that book. It's just horrible. Oh, the late 90s were a bad time. But anyway, it's a really weird look. An interesting rule system, some bad art. It's kind of thrown together. It was abandoned halfway through because the company went out of business. I would like to recommend it, but really can't. It's a glimpse back into history. I probably should pick up the Mongoose versions of Babylon 5 and compare them, although I have to admit the cover of their D20 one when it came out scared me off. It looked equally bad to this. In fact, the covers of these actually looked better. But anyway, that's Retro RPG for this week. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. I will catch you later, and you all look after yourselves. Bye now.